Hey everybody, this is the GAO Stidio rifle version 4. We're going to be comparing it to my rifle version 2 from about a year ago. They're both stainless steel. The old version, version 2, is magnetic, and this is all mechanical. So we'll be taking it apart and looking at it in detail and talking about the modifications you can do to it, and also doing some comparisons and weighing it and my thoughts as well. So please stick around. Hey everybody, future me chiming in. Unfortunately, when I got to the end of this video, I found out that this screw is completely stripped. And I suspected that when I took it apart the first time, one of the first times earlier. It is a blackened screw, but I could see a lot of shiny metal on the end of it, and I looked at it, but it looked like it still had threads, and I'll explain it later at the very end of the video. But what happened here is this side has through holes for the screws to go through. This side has the threaded part that the screw actually threads into. The through holes on this side were not drilled out far enough, and by chance this screw made it through and didn't get damaged and was fine, but this one, as they pushed it through, it just crushed the threads off before it even had a chance to get to the threaded portion on this side, because I have checked both sides, the threads without this piece on, and the threads are good. So we're going to test AliExpress now and see if they can get me just the replacement screws. This of course didn't come with one extra goddamn screw, so hopefully they'll give me a couple extra screws and this will be resolved. Otherwise I have to advise you against buying one of these until GAO, I don't know, until you get better results from other people, maybe, because you'll never know if GAO fixed it or not, right? Okay, here's the rest of the video. I hope you enjoy it. It's still good. At least if we need to take one of these apart, maybe they'll find this to be useful. I think deciding to buy one should be pretty easy after this. At least for me, I won't be buying any more of them. Here's the rest of the video. Thanks for watching. Okay, in the same manner that I've been trying to do these videos, I'll try to get the important details out of the way first, in case you're just curious or just interested in maybe buying one. And then for the second half or so, we'll take it apart and play around with it. But you'll notice there's a lanyard, a weird lanyard on here, and that's kind of necessary. I'm going to be heavily comparing it to my V2 throughout this review, and I decided we're not going to take this apart tonight. I still never did a review on this. It deserves one. It's quite different in the way it feels. It doesn't quite work the same anyhow, but you'll notice they both have a lanyard that's kind of weird, and that's, at least on this one, it was absolutely necessary, I think, because I couldn't figure out a way to hold it otherwise. And the videos at the time showed people doing things like this. They also showed a lot of people doing weird shit like whipping it around, but for me it's just necessary to get a grip on the darn thing. So that's the first thing you'll need to know about this, is you're going to have to put a lanyard on it. And any bead will do, but paracord and a bead, it's a little tricky to get through that hole. It's a very tight hole, but you'll manage. And I just make it so that it's tight enough to get right to my fingers there. Same thing with this one. So a bigger bead is nice, but I couldn't find. I would have gotten one just like this. I prefer beads. As a side note, I really like beads that are mechanically interesting, like everything else. And this is one of those ones, and I think it's from a store called Advanced Bravely on AliExpress. But if you wanted to, I have brass hobby tubing in here as fake tritium vials. But you can put tritium or glow vials in there, and it's I think it's titanium, pretty sure it is, and then screw it all back together again and easily change out the colors and stuff without having to use glue. And that's the same thing with this one. You can get one of these on Amazon for about 25 bucks. But I just wanted to put a nice one on there, so that's what I have. And yeah, that's kind of like part one. I'm not going to break this into parts, but you need a lanyard. It's best if it's about as thick as your fingers. The big question right off the bat is, would you like something like this? And the chances are, if you've never had one, probably not. Because, again, you'll have to make your own lanyard. This one, the version 4, this is the latest and greatest mechanical, is a little bit bigger, significantly bigger than the version 2. And that makes it a little easier to do without a lanyard. You can get away with using this. It would have been nice if they would have put some, I forget what the gimping, like on a knife, so a little bit of a gripping texture back here. You end up pushing it from the back. And you do that too whenever you use the lanyard. I push it from the back. I don't know how else you're supposed to do it. But again, the videos for this version 4, again, show them doing some kind of weird whipping it about stuff in the air, and I'm not about to do that. But I have it set up in a way that I like. I like it fairly well. But again, you're going to have to be somebody that's used to using one of these. Otherwise, you might likely be pretty disappointed when you get it. I have gone through the ringer with this one, and that's part of the story that you'll hear when I do the video about it. And it's not even set up the way I bought it. It's got different kind of magnets in it entirely. But I've gotten used to this, and I've actually grown to like it a little bit, especially after I made my changes to it. But yeah, it's kind of a thing that you're going to have to get used to it. They're trying, again, it's China seems to have a thing with things that imitate guns, or semi-automatic handguns, and it really doesn't perform like that. I mean, it doesn't recoil back to where it should, no matter how you have it set up. At least I don't think you can do anything with that. But it's similar, and I like the squarish shape. You know, it's nice and, what's the word? It's not organic. It's not too organic looking. Like the top E slider looks like an alien egg. You know, I like things that are boxy. Like I like the old, the way that BMWs used to look, like back in the 80s, nice and boxy. And now, you know, like a BMW looks just like a Chevy Cavalier. So I like things that are boxy, I guess. Let's see, where should we take it from there? I am going to tell you there's a place here for beads. Not beads, balls. But I haven't tried that yet. It did not come with anything other than what I'll show you. I'm not an unboxing person, but if you're going to buy one, you might be interested in knowing what you get. You get this nice plastic box, which I don't really have a use for, but GAO is on there. And inside the box, you have a screwdriver, a little bag with some stops, which I'll show you how those work, a rather lengthy roll of what they say is Teflon tape. It's kind of coming off the coil here, but I haven't looked at that or tried it yet, or really found a need for it yet. And then you get your little, it's kind of a COA. I don't know if it's a COA or not. I didn't bother translating it. I'm not that interested, but in case any of you are interested, I could at least put it on camera for a second or two, and you could focus it. You could pause it if you wanted to and maybe see what all that stuff says. So, you get that. You get these stickers, which I believe this would be like a GAO. And then these don't make any sense at all to me. I don't know what's going on there. It's a brain. And that is a dude holding a fish. A dude in a red cape hood holding a fish. So, that's what you get. What's most important, of course, is the spare parts. So let's take a quick look at those. I forget exactly what the website advertisements are calling these things, but these are stops. These prevent this from sliding too far one way or the other. It also prevents it from coming off altogether, because that's what holds these top and bottom pieces together. So there's two different sizes of these. Right now I have the smaller ones in. I have this set up to what I think is the best configuration right now, When it comes with just 2 of these in, and there needs to be 2 on each side. So there's actually, whoops, I just dropped a ball. I'll find it later. But so there's 2 on each side, but there's also a set of about half this size, and that's what I have in here now, and a spring goes between them. But you also get 2 extra springs, and then it came with 2 white zirconium oxide, if that's what that is. 2 of those were installed because there's 2 springs and balls that push up against the detents. It also came with some extra steel balls. I switched out to the steel balls. I think I like those a little bit better myself. Still testing it out, though. I'm not sure what I'll like in the end. I'm going to go ahead and put those back away for right now. Oh, I'm going to see the ball. You know what? I'll worry about that later. That's everything that was in the box. Right now I've only seen it in stainless steel. The other versions, when they came out, you could get blackened stainless steel. I think copper and brass were some other options, but right now I've only seen stainless steel. When you push it forward, that's the spring. The spring is acting, and the inside there, when I do that, the spring only really activates, so you can only feel the spring when it's all the way this way or all the way that way. It doesn't really do much other than when it's clear out there at the end. Now, if you'll notice I'm getting nice clicks when I bring it back like that each time. And the reason is because I'm holding it a little bit from the sides. Like most of these things, if you just try to push it back on its own, it either jumps too far or not enough, and it just doesn't work well, you know? So you need to sort of slow it down. And I've only had this here for a couple of hours, but like I said, I am familiar with the version 2, and this is more of a initial impressions video and everything. I'll come back later and talk about it some more, I think. But so far, heed my warnings that if you're not used to this, that you're going to be steep learning curve, we'll say. But the mechanical version is definitely better than the magnetic version. Now, going in this direction, I haven't quite gotten to yet. I'll tell you, I've noticed this because of the fact that this is so much longer. Now, this one I've always held like this between my middle finger, because that sets it up just right in my hand for where I want it to be. And that's fine, and that's how I started to hold this one. But this one is significantly longer. Let's compare the two. I'll hold them the same way. See, pretty different. It doesn't look too different, but it certainly makes a difference. I've taken to putting it down here, and that has nothing to do with the length of the lanyard. They're both about the same. They both sort of cinch up against your knuckles and everything when you hold them together. But I've taken to holding it down here because it brings it down a little bit further in your hand. And once you get it established, now I did move it around a little bit. It's more, I'm getting used to it, But I think I can give you a fair opinion of it right now. And like I said, it's if you're used to it, I think you'll like it. If not, probably take a little bit of a learning curve. So let's go ahead and compare it to some things. We've done this we've talked about this one enough. They're both the same thickness. They both have the same profile on the end. Main difference being that one's significantly longer than the other. But to compare them in size, like if you have, what's our old favorite, the Mackie CP3. Everybody has this or something very much like it. So this one compares well in size with the V2. But when you get to the V3, you can see the difference there. I went looking for things that were about the same size as it, and the S Nano is almost right on the money. So if you want to pretend what this might feel like, You sort of lay one in your hand right around where your third finger is, and imagine imagine having fun with the V4. I have a funny advertisement to show you. I'll have to show that here in a minute. But yeah, compared to the Sky Tower is a little bit taller, a little bit thicker, maybe a little bit wider. And here's another one that's very close in size. I've seen a lot of people have this now. It's about the same height, about the same thickness. The only difference would be the width there. So there's our comparisons. If I were you, just quickly, since we're almost at the end of this, I'll weigh it and measure it next. If you're really interested in it, get it. If you've never had one, if you had one of these, it might be worth getting. It's definitely better, and especially mechanically, it's interesting because it's mechanical and not magnetic. But the price difference between this is from the same company, GAO Studio's stainless steel cashew, which is one of my current favorites and more recent pieces. This can be found. I normally don't talk about prices, but it's worth talking about because of the difference here. Like $65 I've seen. This, brand new, right now, not bad, but $100. Stainless steel. This I went back and looked a year ago. This was $130 for me. Now, if you want to get a V2, just like this one, it's up to $140 or so. But you probably can't find one. I don't know if you can or not. I think when I was looking for prices, I found some that had out of stock, but they still had their pricing listed. If you wanted to get a V3, which I haven't really talked about yet, it's what occurred between this one and this one. You know what? Let's stop right now and I'll show you what the V3 looks like. So that was the V3, and we'll talk about it more. There's more to show about that one, but if you were to get the V3, if you could find one, that's actually even higher. That's 150, and we'll talk about the differences in it later. Well, you know, I'll mention just now what I know about it is this is all magnetic. The V3 is magnetic, but a different design, and it's changed size. It looks like it's about this size. And I think there's a spring in it, so there's a slight mechanical aspect to it. So it's different. I don't have one. I never have held one or seen one, but these based on pictures that I've seen. And then you have this one. So, you know, keep in mind that this, which is an amazing piece, I think, inside and out, beautifully made, beautiful to look at, beautiful to hold, soft, works fantastic. $65, $100. Same company. I don't get it. This had to be more difficult to machine. But there's food for thought. Let's cover the final things like weight and measurement. We'll bring in the scale here. And there's no magnets in it, so you don't have to worry about that affecting the scale. Now that is titanium bead, I think, so without that, a couple grams, maybe a gram or two, a couple grams. So somewhere around 85 grams. Let's compare that to this. About 10 grams more. This is 10 grams more than this. So there you have that. Dimension-wise, it is 21.5 millimeters wide, 12 thick, and 50 tall. So I can't really get a measurement on that lanyard hole because it's so filled with the lanyard material. But if I had to guess, it's pretty small. It's right around 3. I'll bet it's around 3-4 millimeters. It's probably the same diameter as this slot, but my caliper tips I don't think will get in there far enough. There's a chamfer. We'll see. That looks to be right around 2 millimeters. And how wide is that? This is only guesstimations here, close estimates. about 13 millimeters. There's a trit slot that appears to be about, I'll bet you could fit a 7 millimeter. Yeah, I'd say a 7 millimeter would fit in there. And for width, I don't know what widths trits are available in, but maximum width would be probably about 1.5 millimeters. I wouldn't go bigger than that. Yeah, we're going to find out here. There is a place to put balls on the inside. It's a little bit bigger than the outside measurement I'm giving you here, which is about 28 millimeters. But it should hold a number of balls just for a sound effect that rattle around in there. It did not come with any extra balls for that, which I was a little disappointed in, but that's fine. So I think that's it. From this point forward, we're going to go ahead and take it apart and maybe just talk about it in a little bit more detail. So if you've stuck around this far, please stick around for the rest. So a quick way to tell these apart, the V2, V3, and V4, is by the slots and holes that are in them there. And I'm going to bring back the pictures of the V3 so that you can see that. I'm going to get the V2, oops, sorry about that, didn't mean to shake your world up. I'm going to get the V2 back out here, and you see the V2 just has a lanyard hole on this side. The V3, which I'm about to show you again, has a slot like this, but it's located over here on this side. There's no second hole, just a slot like this. And I think it comes with a leather-esque, fake leather, real leather, I'm not sure, but a little strap that goes through there, and maybe a ring that it goes on to do goofy spins with your finger. But for some reason on the V4 they kept it, but they moved it over here, and they brought back the lanyard hole, which I'm happy about because that's what I preferred. And if you put the lanyard through a slot like this, it's going to be slopping around and everything. So let's talk about the V3 quick. I'm going to show you the pictures of it here, just a couple pictures in a row, and then we'll talk about it. So that was the V3 there, and I guess there's not really a whole lot more to talk about. I just wanted you to get a good look at it, see the difference between them and everything. The next thing we'll do here is go ahead and take it apart, but before that, let me show you this ad. And I thought it was kind of funny just because, you know, these things never translate very well, but I'm going to try to put it up on the screen here, right off to the right, and let me just read what it says to you here. Increase sliding stroke and feel ever-changing. Let your instant dopamine burst into the shed. So this has the potential to make your dopamine burst into the shed. I'm warning you. Just be aware of that, and you know, take that with a grain of salt. The other thing is, I've seen this advertised or described as the Sigma, and I don't think that's accurate. And the reason being, and I'm not sure why they do that now, but this was the Mini SP, which I've talked about frequently, mechanical hybrid, magnetic mechanical slider. And on the back, it has a new engraving here. I'll try to get it in focus for you. It says GAO Sigma, and I've heard someone or different people refer to this as the Sigma, and I've seen it in advertising too. Not sure why they're putting that there. It is on here. Hopefully that is in focus enough for you to see. On the bottom, it just says GAO Studio. And yeah, that's it for markings. Where was I? Okay, I remember. I was just going on about the naming of this thing. I don't think it's called Sigma. I'm just calling it the V4. I think that's probably the most accurate way to describe it. Let's go ahead and get to taking it apart. So now we're getting to the fun part. T6 is the Torx driver that you'll be needing. There's 2 screws on the back. So we'll get in here and just take these out. And then you can just lift well, once you get the screws undone, you can sort of lift that off. Now you'll see I'm holding the back piece on just so it doesn't fall off. I'm going to get in here close and focus. Whoops, we lost part of it. We lost the ball. So I'm going to leave that down for right now. But what you do see here is the stops. There's a stop there and a stop there and a spring in between them. So when it's all enclosed, and of course it's captured from the other side as well, and it's like it's sliding back and forth inside of a little tube in there. In fact, if you look at this part up here, this cavity, that is where you can put your extra balls to make noise. We're just seeing the one half of it, the other half of the body. This half makes up the other side. Same thing, here's the other side of this tube I was speaking of that this travels back and forth in. And the spare parts have little stops or slugs, I think I've called them slugs before, that are a little bit longer, but they really limit your movement, while your left and right movement once you put them in. So I'm sticking with those. We'll go ahead and lift off the bottom. Just sort of jiggle it apart there. Now the balls come out pretty easily. They're located, let me just get rid of this other side. Get those out. So now we're looking at the bottom piece all by itself. And there's two blind holes here in the middle with springs that are still sitting in there. There they came out. They're pretty long. But it's you put the springs in, you put the balls on top of that, and then you rest this down into it and put it back together. We'll do that in a minute, but you can see the detents down here. As you move back and forth, when you move in this direction, you get about 5 clicks. And when you move this direction, it goes all the way till it stops at a click. And because of that spring, and because of these little slugs, or limiters, as it slides back and forth and reaches those limits, how was I holding it for I could show you best here? Yeah, as it slides forward and reaches those limits, that's when the spring engages a little bit. I'm not doing a good job at showing this to you. It wants to come apart without the other half holding it down, but as it comes to the end, that's when the spring engages, and that's when when you feel the spring. But it's certainly not strong enough to kick it back, even when you put in the bigger slugs. And I don't think we're going to bother doing that, just because I've already had it that way when it came in, and it's not that impressive to see. Well, you know what? Why the heck not? Let's see how many, and if they fit, how many 4mm balls can go in here. I think that's the limit. That may be, in fact, that may be too many. Let me see here. One of those almost looks a little discolored. Actually, a couple of these look a little different colored, but I don't really care about that right now. Looks like they're snug, but it looks like they're in there okay. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 balls. I'll take a couple out. I'll take the couple out that looked funny to me and put those back in. So now we have 3, 6, 7. Let's put that there. We've got our limiters or slugs, and the spring is in place. I'll put that back here. This is the base. So we can take and put these springs back into their little holes. My magnetic tweezers, that's really starting to bug me, especially with these small springs. Okay, we put those in. Now, let's do the back side first. And in order to do that, I'm going to put the ball, use the tweezers, I always forget it's easier just to use the tweezers. So the ball's in place. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. I'm going to try to keep this thing sort of on an angle and bring these together at sort of a 45-degree angle so I can push down on that ball, catch everything on the inside, on the opposite side now where the spring and the two slugs are, everything is now captured in there. So I did it. Now we can finish putting this half together. Okay, and get these out of the picture. Mustn't forget to put this next ball in. Again, that has to go in here. Now I'm sort of holding this thing at a sort of not quite a 45. I don't want all these balls to fall out. But now that'll enable me to come in here like this. That's sort of a 45. And sort of just fold everything together. And now everything's together. All we gotta do is put the screws to it. Okay, well, something bad just happened. I spared you the words that came out of my mouth there. I'm not going to include that part, but that screw's stripped. And I suspected that it was whenever I was taking it apart the first time, because it looked like the finish was a bit ruined on the surface. You know, they're blackened screws, and I could see that part of the screw was very silverish, and I'm not going to try to get it apart now. But now I've looked at it closer, and I tell you what I had to do. I had to drill, and this means I'm going to have to go back and record a little part to show at the very beginning of this video as a warning. Both of these holes on this plate that the screw needs to travel through, it needs to travel through that hole in order to get to this side where it actually threads in. These holes were too small. They were not drilled out the whole way. And when they forced the screw in, at least this side was good, made it through. This side, it just crushed the threads right off. So what I discovered once I took everything apart was the screw still goes in. The screws will still thread into both sides on this half. But only one screw is good. And of course, they didn't give me any extra screws. 2 cents, 3 cents for a screw. They couldn't have thrown 2 or 3 more in there. So we'll get to test now, once again, how well GeoCities can, not GeoCities, what the hell am I thinking, GeoCities? I used to have GeoCities websites. AliExpress handles the situation, because I'm going to ask them in detail how we can, if they'll give me screws, then I'll be fine with it. But now this has to go with a warning. Whoever gets one of these now, you've got to watch out for this, because until GAO fixes that, who knows how many that are out there like that. So, and I'm not going to bother taking it apart now and showing you what the slugs, the larger slugs that I have that came with it. Effectively, it makes the springiness a lot more springy, and I don't know that it allows you to get the whole way out here to where you can get your clicks. And apparently in my anger, I've misplaced putting a ball in there or something, because now it's not clicking. So, that's it. Unfortunately, ending on sort of a sour note. I had higher hopes for this. Now I have to warn you against it. So, at least, yeah, I put this on backwards, so not that that'll matter. It didn't affect anything, but I normally would have had this GAO insignia thing over on this side, but it doesn't make any difference. So let's leave it at that, and I will update you on how things go. Either way, maybe they'll get this fixed. I hope the video is useful to you in learning how to take it apart, put it back together again. Deciding whether or not to buy one shouldn't be too big of a problem right now. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Again, thanks for watching. Bye.